So, so before proceeding with the filtering and other correction, baseline adjustment of the data, so let us try to get into a common data format. Let us adopt a common data format which will bring us in sync with the all international agencies using and contributing to strong motion data. So Cosmos is the consortium of strong motion uh, organization, strong motion instrumentation program, or different agencies which operate and maintain strong motion data. So they have this virtual data center where all that serves as a repository of all data. So in one platform, data from different user agencies all over the world that can be accessed. So you can access this from this website, strongmotioncenter.org. So here we can have the complete data from different networks. So Cosmos is one of the partners, and there are other agencies which contribute to this, and we can have all the world over data, world all over the world, international data. So you can look at this archive. So internet data reports. So this is 2021. These are the earthquakes. So we may also explore possibility of sharing the data once we uh, get our data format in line with the data format that is used by these agencies. So depending on your internal protocols, NHPC's policy about data sharing, we can upload, share probably NHPC data also with this database, and NHPC data can also be accessed by all over the world. So you can explore this at your leisure, and find out what is the resources. So these are the worldwide ground response data, so virtual data center, and this is only for the American data. So this is strong motion data from worldwide data, and you can actually get the search data according to region or stations, specific station, or earthquakes occurring in a particular region, or using different parameters of the data. Uh, for example, we may need to use this data, some part of this data, to augment our database when we work towards development of the ground motion prediction equation. So some of the data we may have to extract from this data center to fill up the gaps in our data. So magnitude range and date, from where to what date, and acceleration, and then what is the information that we are looking for, and if we are looking for a particular mechanism, or whether we are looking for a particular structural type, or what kind of soil condition or geotechnical condition that we are looking for in the data, and accordingly we can have. And also with respect to specific uh, recording or maintenance station, which agency is maintaining that record or that particular motion. So we can look at magnitude 7 to magnitude 9, let's say, and 1933 is Long Beach earthquake, so maybe 1999 to 2019. So let us look at that. We should get some events from Turkey and Taiwan. So as you can see, the hypocentral distance, so we get very near field events also, and that's why this data set is this resource is so useful. It's very difficult to get data with at such a small distance, such short distance, and it is where at such short distances is where we have the maximum intensity of the ground shaking, and that is where our vulnerability to earthquake actually comes into uh, picture. I mean, they represent the truly damaging earthquakes if it is really from large earthquake. So let us look at this data. So peak ground acceleration 0.3 g for horizontal, and then vertical 0.3 g, and this is also that. So you can look at this. So again, that famous Chichi earthquake of Taiwan. So that is what I expected. 25th September 1999. This event actually gave us very good set of near field data, and this is typical near field data. As you can see, very short burst and a relative calm. So although the event kept on recording for a long time, but the strong motion part is only very short, maybe 5 seconds or so. That's all. And that's a peak is just one major peak, and rest of the event, rest of the record is not really very, not doing much. So so all this obviously to present data in this format, which can be viewed on the fly and then record it and download the data. So they actually give you. We need to be consistent with the data format adopted by these agencies. So again, this is another record from the same event at much shorter distance, uh, 7.8 kilometers. And you can probably correlate. I mean, you may be able to explain this better. Uh, I guess this actually refers to multiple slips on the fault. So initial fault motion, and then it gets stuck for some time, and then it slips again. So these are the short pulses that you get after each uh, movement after getting stuck. So now this particular event is very peculiar. You can see at 12 kilometer we had in one station we had PGA more than 0.3 G, and at 15 kilometer we now have PGA which is 0.04. So obviously a lot to do with the site characteristics of this recording station. Let us have a look at this record. So obviously it is much broad based, so this is probably at a softer deposit. So we may have more information about the site characterization, site characteristics in the header file of this particular data, and that is why the header file or the information that we put in header file is so important. It allows us to interpret the characteristics of the motion correctly, and also to account for uh, the data set in ground motion prediction equation, the site conditions, the effect of the site condition that may be reflected in the ground motion prediction equations. So after, I hope I have sold the idea of adhering to a common format uh, strong enough. I mean, my sales pitch has been hopefully has been strong enough. So now we go to the discussion about strong motion data format per se, the specific format. So Cosmos strong motion format, and as I said in our last interaction, that it is a standard format with minimum of 45 lines of header data before the actual acceleration data is usable. Acceleration data for any further use is accessed. So this 45, I mean 45 is the minimum. We can extend it further. Again, that provision, provided we adopt to this 45 header lines, and the information is built in at designated places. What is the actual length of the headers before the data points start. So, but most of the, I mean, this is uh, developed with a view to provide as much information as possible, and many a times we don't have all this information, or such detailed information is not available, and that is also recognized, and there is a code for that. We just use some very high number, let's say 999 and something of that sort, to indicate that this particular data is not available. So that kind of format is adopted by Cosmos. So let us look at the example of data file structure. So there are 13 lines of text data which talk about whether it is what kind of data this file describes, whether it is uncorrected accelerogram or whether it is corrected accelerogram, or whether it is pore pressure record, or whether it is response spectra, anything. So that first line starts with that, and then there are other information about the event itself, origin time, latitude, longitude of the station, the sensor characteristics, and so on. What kind of sensor, what is the serial number, identification. So all so that it can be anything that all the information that one can probably ever think of accessing, or ever coming, ever feeling a need for it. Those all data are captured, and they are preserved in this data, in this header. Followed by there are integer parameters. So again, this is mostly, it is a placeholder, but a large number of placeholders, so about 11 lines, and then followed by another real header that is also mostly a placeholder. We don't have too much data coming in, but uh, partly integer header would include the data about what are the total number of data points, what is the number of segment for the setting for the filter response function of finite impulse response function, FIR filter, digital filter, that we will use in the analysis processing. So what kind of filtering parameters are there, what are the number of points, and so on. And then real header will include again associated parameters like corner frequencies of the filter setting, band pass filter that we will use, anti-aliasing filter, and then of course the filter response function, the numerical data of the impulse response function of the filter. So that can also be used, included in the header file, so that if anybody wants to retrieve or go back or reverse the entire processing, then all the information is there in the header file, by virtue of which the entire processing can be reversed. So then followed after that, it is after the header file, it is followed by the data section, and usually they are in the real floating point format, essentially the exponential format. These are typically used, exponential format. In early days, it's very interesting because the floating point format actually consumes or takes more space. Uh, Earlier archiving at earthquake engine department, we used to do it in integers. So we used to convert everything into maybe all acceleration data into millimeters per second squared, and then just store it as an integer. And that used to be very fast processing at the time. When we are talking about 80s, computer processing power was very, very limited. Storage was very, very limited. So that was a very uh, interesting interpretation of number system, that a real number, a real quantity, uh, after truncating the fractional part, was stored as integer, and we could still, after processing, during the processing numerical computation, when the strong motion data was used, we would convert it back into uh, the usual units of meter per second squared, and consider the decimal up to 2 places of decimal accuracy. So that's just an interesting history, bit of history. We don't need to resort to those kind of tricks now. So again, as I said earlier, we need to develop some strings, some scripts for data conversion, and once we develop those scripts, then it becomes a very simple process and routine processing. So this is a example sample from a script in a Fortran program, which they use for data conversion into a standard format. But a similar thing can be developed in any platform, any language, or any even macro languages like Octave or MATLAB. So we can consider doing that. And so data file types, as I said, it is historically we refer to Caltech or USGS formats. So starting from the initial work of strong motion program that started at Caltech uh, under the supervision of Professor Hudson. So they started labeling it as a volume 1 data file, volume 2 data file, and volume 3 data file, indicating the different phases of data. So volume 1 is just the uncorrected acceleration files uh, coming from the instrument, but in the physical units. But other than multiplication with the calibration constant of the instrument, these data have not seen any kind of processing. So these are called uncorrected file because no instrument correction and baseline correction is performed. And then volume 1 data files are converted to second stage, second phase of processing. So those are called volume 2 data files, which generate the time series in for acceleration, velocity and displacements, and with all the low pass and high pass filter and appropriate correction for the baseline adjustment and instrument correction as well. And at the end of volume 2 processing, we will end up with uh, acceleration, velocity and displacement uh, for each component of data. So if the data is from triaxial sensor, then we will have three components of acceleration, velocity and displacements corresponding to each sensor. And then volume 3, once we have this time series, then volume 3 data is produced, that is actually more towards the application part. And these are the references for format that are adopted. As you can see, it starts from uh, Hudson and Trifnac initially 1969. These are the first strong motion accelerogram processing, and afterwards it was taken up by uh, all these people moved to Southern California from Caltech, and then it used to begin to be called as a USC format, and then Brady moved to USGS. So USGS also evolved its own format, and then of course California Division of Mining, it that also started its own strong motion program, and they developed its own format. So this is the illustration, the basic format for that I was referring to. As you can see, these are the line numbers, and these are the 43, 45 lines. So 45 lines of header data. From 46th line, you have these time series data. So number of data points, which quantity, acceleration points, what is the duration, approximately 200 seconds, what is the unit in which it is being reported, and then the format which should be used to read the data. So this is and before that, these are the header files. So let us look at this header file. So first line, it starts with corrected acceleration. So instrument and baseline correction has been performed, and then what is the format? So in this case, it is Cosmos 1.20 version 1.20 with 13 text lines, and then this is the source. So this is the original binary file that was retrieved from the sensor or the recorder or whatever is the instrument. So EVT is a native format of the manufacturer, the instrument manufacturer, and they are generally uh, proprietary formats, and they would provide, all the manufacturers provide utilities to read this format. Then second line contains information about the event itself. What is the name of the event, where did it occur, and what is the time and the time of origin of the event, and then the uh, this is usually reported in the local time, so you need to specify the time zone as well. Then the next line comes the focal length and other distance measures. What are the hypocenter distance? This is the location of the hypocenter, and then what is the distance, depth of the hypocenter, focal depth, and then magnitude estimates. Whosoever, I mean, different magnitude assignments, and also the agency which has assigned this, whose reports are we citing in this, because same earthquake may be assigned different magnitudes by different agencies. So it is important to be clear, be specific about which magnitude is being reported, and what is the agency which has reported that magnitude, because magnitudes keep on getting revised over a period of time. So if we have to revisit this data, if we have to use this data in our further processing of ground motion prediction equation, then we need to be sure about what kind of magnitude is being reported, and who has reported, and whether there has been any revision in this magnitude measurement or magnitude characterization or not. And then the origin, again, the origin of the event in UTC, your universal time coordinate times. So whatever is the origin, so that becomes part of the data. And then comes the this particular event. So far it is the generic information about the earthquake. Now from fifth line, it is the record on that particular station. So what is the station number identifier, and do we have any, if we have any specific reference for the code, station code for internal mechanism, internal reference system for all these different strong motion stations, and then location where it is exactly, then coordinates of this recording station, then what is the site geology, whether it is hard rock or alluvium or whatever is the geological condition, at least macro level. And then the recorder characteristics, what kind of recorder is their accelerometer, what kind of sensor is being used, so FBA 11, and then the serial number of that sensor, and then serial number of the recorder, and what channel is being used. So in this case, SSA2 is actually a centralized recording system which would take feed from different sensors and the recording system. They are separate in this particular arrangement that we are looking at here, and therefore you will see that SSA2, a typical event, typical unit would have 12 channels of data coming in. It can record up to 12 channels. So out of those channels, 3 channels are corresponding to this particular station, this particular sensor FBA 11. This sensor, this contributes to the 3 channels out of 12 possible of this particular SSA of this serial number. Other 3 channels, I mean rest of the 9 channels would be consumed by other sensor. So and then we start again with the start time of the event, and then record ID, whatever for the internal recording mechanism. So how this particular record is being referred to in the database of the agency which is maintaining it, and then the orientation of the sensors. So channel number 4, so what is the sensor orientation, and what is the location? So in this case it is located on the 8th floor of this particular building, Hollywood Storage building, and it is located at a center of the floor. So raw record length, what is the duration? So uncorrected maximum acceleration value. It's again whatever value at in units, whatever unit you report, and what is the time instant at which this maxima occurs. And then after that, when was this? I mean, this is as far as the occurrence of the event was concerned. Then we also need to record when was this data processed for correction and this baseline adjustment. So that processing date and time is recorded, and what is the uh, processing technique used, what kind of algorithm was used for the processing. So in this case it was USGS processing was adopted, and then what is the maximum of the corrected accelerogram, and what is the maximum value and at what time. So here there seems to be some error. It can't be so much different in raw acceleration data and corrected acceleration data. You can't go from 19.6 seconds to 9.6 seconds. So probably this one here is missing somehow. It has and this is inconsistency in the header file. So this has to be 19.64. And then the filter settings. What is the low pass filtering range, and what is the high pass? So this is typically kept at the corner frequency at 3 dB level at the lower end of the spectrum and at the higher end of the spectrum. And then, as I said, values used when the parameter of data value is unknown or unspecified, then we just specify negative 999 or negative 999.0, depending on whether we are looking at integer field or at a float. So these are the 13 text header files, then followed by 100 integer header values, and they follow on the 10 lines after this one line. So total of 11 lines devoted to integer header values. So some of the values that you can see, and most of these values are actually populated by 999. We'll come to what do these numbers represent subsequently when we look at the header file and the data format eventually. And similarly, after these integer data, there would be 100 real header values which follow on the 17 lines, again in this format. So after this, from 25th line onwards up to 42nd line, there would be these real header values. And again, most of the values are just placeholders. So this is just I would say, creating space for future information that can go, so that we do not have to change our programs to deal with the data. So if we wish to use just the acceleration data without bothering about anything, we know that we need to remove or just ignore 45 lines, and there is no data in the time series data in these 45 lines. So we just skip 45 lines, read this particular number from the 46th line, that is the total number of data points, and then from next line onwards we just read the total number of these many number of data points from the next line onwards. So that's why this is important. It is important to ensure that this standard is adopted, so that all the scripts that are used for processing and reading strong motion data would work seamlessly with this data point. So in the case of NHPC database, we need to convert all our data into this format, So first we start with this 13 line header format, and then for the timing we will just leave these as unspecified values until we uh, come to the individual values that are going here. What are these and what appropriate values should be taken from the corresponding to NHPC operations. So we will know about these when we in the subsequent when we look into the data processing section. And then this is of course for I mean this particular header is for volume 2. For volume 1 it would be just uncorrected acceleration. Instead of corrected acceleration it would be uncorrected acceleration. And obviously for volume 1 there would not be anything related to filtering. So uh, processing information would not be there, and then record filtration, this information would be irrelevant in that case, and so on. So these are the alternate examples of first line of the header. So corrected acceleration, uncorrected acceleration, then raw acceleration count. So this will be for V0 data format, and then velocity data, displacement data, response spectra, and so on. So, and then these are the examples of this particular line, 46th line. So acceleration data, so we start with number of data points, then what is the physical quantity, what is the total duration of this time series, what are the units in which it is being recorded, reported, and then what is the appropriate format for reading this data, so that we can use. So raw acceleration, as I said, it will be in the digital count, so that will be a volume 0 data, V0 data, that is used for some of the processing. Uh, and then this is an example of the volume 3 data. So again line 1 corrected accelerogram in that example gets replaced by response spectra. Then line 11 becomes this. So instead of recording the maximum of ground acceleration, we record what is the spectral acceleration, maximum spectral acceleration at what is the natural period, and what is the damping ratio, for which damping ratio. And then again, what are the uh, values. So first come the period, natural period at which response spectra are computed. So these are the set of 91 natural periods at which response spectra are computed, starting from 0.04 seconds to 15 seconds. And if you, I mean, you will find some kind of pattern here, and I'll reveal the secret little mystery how these numbers, magic numbers, are obtained. These are actually the uniformly spaced points on the logarithmic scale. If you plot these 0.04 and 15 on logarithmic scale, then these points are actually the uniformly spaced points in that range on a logarithmic scale. So no great magic here, and the reason for that is derived from first principles, that if we compute at these points, then the chances of missing out a peak are minimized. So these periods are actually calculated on the basis of capturing the maximum response spectrum ordinates. So this structural response, or the when we compute the time history analysis and compute the response spectra, the chances that we will have a peak in between, neither at 1.7 nor at 1.8, but somewhere in 1.75 or 1.73 would be uh, very unlikely. So these are the points where selected such that the possibility of missing out a peak in computation is minimized. And once we do that, then all these values of response spectra. So here it says approximate Fourier spectrum. So approximate Fourier spectrum in this case is only pseudo spectral velocity spectrum